Just how far can Cam Rising take this Utah team? And do the Utes have one of the best QB rooms in the country?
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms. My name is JT Wistrcill, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about Cam Rising, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who has helped completely revitalize Utah's season a season ago. And in order to talk about Cam, I want to bring on a special guest. He's the KSL.com sports director, covering Utah football, basketball, and gymnastics as well. Also, my former boss. Please welcome to the podcast, Josh Furlong. Josh, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hey.
Yeah, great to have you on. So one thing, just Cam Rising had such an incredible impact on this Utah football team a year ago. But it's one of those things, I want to take it back a little bit. When he first transferred from Texas to Utah, did you think he was capable of what he did last season?
I don't know if we thought he was capable for star quarterback. Everybody was kind of excited. But it was interesting because, he was going to have, it didn't really, you didn't really know which, by all accounts, every time Kyle would talk about this excitement that I haven't quite when he talks about a quarterback. And so you him when he was on the scout team and everything that way, I knew there could be something. I don't know if somebody that would do well for him. So actually see it unfold. We thought we were going to get it in 2020, but it was it was a fun season to be able to watch that and kind of the dynamic that he had as well as the team around him.
Yeah, what an incredible ride it was. And was that something, you were at the San Diego State game, just how did you feel the energy on the Utah sideline, the team? I'm sure even in the press box, you could just feel the change once Cam stepped in for Charlie, correct?
Yeah, it was different, right? Because going into that game, I've expected Utah just to roll over San Diego State. I was expected to be this better team without San Diego State. And then it was just kind of like they laughed. Nothing was really working. There wasn't a lot of urgency. And then the second Cam Rising gets in, I don't want to say it was from everybody there, but the second he started going, the offensive line suddenly blocked better. Cam needed to. Things kind of changed in a way that in that first half with Charlie Brewer. And so you could of something different right then, right? Like we didn't fully after the game and kind of what everybody was saying. It's interesting to kind of get that vibe, right? To be able to say, okay, can come back and win this game. They obviously took it and come out on their end, but I think saw Cam really just changed the dynamic of what people wanted to do with him.
Yeah, one of the biggest things you touched on right there, I think that's helped Cam really turn around this team, is he's such a phenomenal leader. We heard Coach Whittingham talk about it at his press conference at Pac-12 Media Day, how Cam's one of the best leaders he's ever been around. And when you've been coaching as long as Coach Whitt has, that's an extremely high compliment as well received by Cam. And just your experience talking with some of the players as well, what do you think makes Cam such a great leader and just a guy that everyone wants to follow into battle?
The funny thing is when kind of got the similar view in my eyes of every time you talk about Cam, especially if you're asking him so special, they always get a smile on their face. There's about him and his personality that really resonates with. Talk to a lot of the players and they say that Cam cares, right? Now that sounds really simple. Wouldn't any of your teammates care? But he's out there like trying to honestly find out where he's trying to find out what's going on with his wide. And I think it just there's this Cam's got your back no matter what happens, right? He's going to give his best, but he's also going to lift you up. It's kind of an underrated thing in sports, right? Like everybody's you're supposed to go in there and be tough. Sport. It's a mental sport. It's a physical sport, and not going to be on your A game every single day. And I think something that allows people to feel confident in them, to know that, look, I've got somebody that understands what this. Know that I can go to Cam and he'll talk to me. Now, it's necessarily only the players do, but I think what comes down to it is Cam is just there. He's easy to fight for because he's going to.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys you can tell his teammates just love playing for him. Dalton Kincaid is always smiling, but the smile gets a little bit bigger when he starts to talk about Cam. And, one thing that a lot of Utah fans were excited to hear about Cam was that he feels like his arm strength is back this year. And that was something that I think a lot of people didn't realize maybe how much the shoulder injury hampered him a season ago. So do you think we're going to kind of see a Cam Rising unleash this season?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be like noticeable. Be a situation where he'll deep throws. He was able to do it 100% in being able to feel like he could get the swing motion. But I think that's kind of the difference this year. When he talks about it, it's more just confidence in being everything I want to do now. Whereas last year, the case, and it's not like Cam missed a ton, right? Completions. Every quarterback's going to have incompletions. The difference is now it's just having that confidence in his arm to be a short pass. I can dump off, whatever that is, my arm and be able to go 40, 50 yards to be able to. I think that's kind of the difference, right? Like I don't, against Florida or any of these other games and think, well, he changed his game and now it's a different. Maybe that happens. But I think as much I think it's going to be just more in the sense that he's confident. He's got more zip on the ball and just being able to. He has a full season under his belt as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, and that's one of the most crazy things to think about is Cam was very confident. If he's going on the field against anyone, he absolutely thinks he's going to win. He thinks his team is going to get it done. He talked about how he's still bothered a little bit that their season ended with a loss. Us as Utah fans, everyone was just happy to be at the Rose Bowl. But Cam was kind of like, no, like we expect to be here every day. So to come out with the loss in that game, you could tell it was really disappointing and bothered him. So, yeah, it is going to be great to see the kind of zip he has on the ball less than a month away from the Florida game. It's really exciting for this Utah team. We're going to talk about Cam a little bit more in just a second, but first, I want to tell you guys about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. As you gear for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experiences so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. So, talked about it, really encouraging to see Cam is going to have more zip on the ball this year. Everyone from the supporting cast, really big contributors outside of Britton Covey and I guess TJ Pledger, but it just feels like we're in for the hype around Jalen Glover is really getting going. So it feels like his loss won't be felt as much, especially after, TJ obviously the third down guy, receiving guy. And then you see what Mekhi did in the Rose Bowl when he's not playing corner, then you feel really good about that as well. So it feels like Cam is set up to put up even better numbers this season. And not just because he's going to be starting from the get-go, but because of more continuity with the supporting cast, and even Coach Ludwig having an entire offseason to truly design a game plan around Cam.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing, right? A team that's basically been together for at least one way. When we talked to Andy Ludwig, he said, right? I mean, he talked about having little way, and I think that's the nice thing, right? Like Utah has depth, a player that can break free, running back room that you never know who's going to break out. It's supposed to be the established back, but I wouldn't be surprised if and breaks away, or Jalen Glover, or who. But then you've got the tight ends. We know what the tight ends do. Kincaid or Money that way, and then you've got your wide receiver Solomon Enos, and you've got a bunch of other guys in the system. I think whatever threat, like Utah can attack it, and I think that is invaluable for an offensive coordinator who doesn't have to be a ground and pound team, which has always kind of been. They come in there, they've got their running back in times, and they'll probably still humble it or whatever. But now you've got so much more allows Utah to be able to be competitive with throwing at a high rate. I remember a couple times last year zipping along, and it's like that offense scored so fast, defense had to be back in a different way, right? A lot of people on the field forever because Utah can't score. Now, and their defense is back on the field. But they've got that's the nice thing about Utah right now. They've got a lot of veteran players on offense to do it. And barring injury, there's a lot for this Utah team on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you return 17 starters in total. Lose a couple of guys. We mentioned Britton Covey departing. You lose Nick Ford, but the offensive line still feels like getting everyone back and healthy. Hearing that Jaron Kump is going to be full go for the Florida game is a great news for Utah, and I think everyone has all confidence in the world that Braden Dana is going to hold it down from that left tackle spot as well. So it's just going to be fun to watch this Utah offense work, as you talked about, because we know they can run the football effectively. Cam can run the ball when plays break down as well, something you can have everything planned out for. You got everyone covered. You're trying to get the quarterback, and then Cam jukes a guy out, makes a miss for the sack, or a lot of times he's just so strong, it's just tough to bring him down sometimes, and then he's able to charge forward and get a first down, which can really just break the will of some of these defenses. And this is a Utah team. We talked about rushing the ball, and then kind of that intermediate passing attack, that 10 to 15 yards is something they were really good at this year. And we're all expecting a Devon Vele breakout. He was kind of the star of spring ball, had the big catch in the spring game as well. But if you had to guess just how many times this season, or I'll go, how many plays a game do you think we're going to see? Do you think it's every single game we're going to see an explosive pass from Cam that's going to go for 40 yards? Do you think it's something that's going to be every other game? How do you anticipate kind of the explosive element being how frequently it'll be used in this Utah offense?
Yeah, it's hard to predict that, but right, I think every single game you're going to at least get one of you don't need a bunch of those, right? Plays and being able to do that. But quite honestly, the 40-yard bomb every single game, I think as long as he's able to consistently hit yards, as well as everything underneath, I think if he can consistently do that and hit those, right? You've got somebody like a Jalen, seen him streak for like 45 yards and then all for an easy touchdown grab or something like that. I just don't know if that's you yet. I think Kyle kind of alluded to want to be able to get to that level and say deep threat. And it's funny to watch out. He said, watch out if we're able to do that. I've covered Kyle for about 10 years now, and I don't know if he anything like that. Right? He's very reserved, necessarily brag about his team in the way that maybe some other ways, but like you don't really hear him say or we're going to be really good if this is what happened. I like Cam Rising, he's good at those quick dump passes. He's able to get those intermediate passes. He can do the deep ball. But now if you can get I don't know how you guard Utah drop that, and then what happens to the run game. And then interesting concept to be able to look at what Andy at his disposal. And I think Utah may switch. I think you're going to see an opportunity where, look, Stanford last year, there was no reason to get Stanford couldn't do anything to stop it. And so I think that Utah will have those deep passes with Cam Rising. Utah is so versatile that they can just switch it on and just play to whatever their opponent brings.
Yeah, it is such a nice luxury to have, and it's what should make Utah one of the best teams in the country, especially going into the season on paper and offensively. If they can unlock that, as you mentioned, Josh, just going to be, it's like pick your poison. Like there's almost going to be no way to stop it. So it'll be fun to see if they're able to achieve that. Josh, one thing I'm curious to ask you about is, do you think Cam is the best quarterback in the Pac-12?
Ooh, question. I watched Caleb Williams when he was at Oklahoma at quarterback. He was a rookie, and so that see some of the things that he's got to learn. Even then, phenomenal. I standpoint and what he's able to upper echelon, I still might give Caleb Williams. And as of right now, I mean it's hard to know. It's going to be hard to know because Caleb Williams is going to have 4 or 5 star wide receivers ball to. So I think it'll be an interesting season. But the reality is, even if he matters, right? The fact that Utah has one of the best quarterbacks, even if you're beaten out by Caleb Williams, who's expected to be one of, you're still in that conversation. But you know what? You never know. Maybe the injury than we were expecting, and so maybe as of right now, I have the upper hand to Caleb at his disposal. The type of Cam, it's not that he's that. I think it's probably like a 1A 1B type situation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's interesting as well because they feel like they're very different quarterbacks. When you look at Caleb Williams, he's the guy who he's going to make so many throws and plays a game. I'll never forget watching the Red River rivalry, watching him step on the field versus Texas. Some of those incredible throws he was making all over the field. But then you watch some of his other games as well, and he just makes a lot of head-scratching throws as well. So it really feels like he can make throws that Cam can't make, and then also makes throws that Cam would never make in terms of a dangerous and just a dumb decision. So it really is interesting. And you mentioned so much. We expect this Utah receiving group to be improved this year. We know the tight ends are going to ball out and do their thing, but you got guys like Jordan Addison and all those other 4- and 5-star receivers, and in a Lincoln Riley offense, who I really like. Coach Ludwig, I think he's a really good offensive coordinator. I mean, Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive minds in college football as well. So we know that USC offense should put up high numbers, but it will be interesting to see by the end. I have no doubt that Caleb Williams is going to throw for more yards than Cam this season, but I also know he's going to throw more interceptions as well. So I think it's one of those things where each side would take their guy, and it's not really a loser in that situation, as you mentioned, because these are two of the best quarterbacks in college football. Absolutely. Now, one thing that's always kind of a threat, especially as we saw happen with Utah two years ago, you mentioned it when Cam went down, is you got to have a good backup, someone who's ready to step up and do their thing. And then, of course, last year, Cam was the backup as well, and he just ended up winning the job outright. So that's kind of been the big question going into camp amongst, we know who our quarterback is. There's not a lot of big questions, honestly, but one of them is the battle for quarterback 2. Who do you think in the end is going to win it? Will it be Jaquindon Jackson, or Bryson Barnes?
I've gone back and forth on this so much. I kind of wondered, is Bryce as the backup, right? Or is this just Andy Ludwig, so we're going to go with that? But the reality is, Bryson Barnes is legit, right? Like he's the guy to win that. I mean, this happens, right? Stetson Bennett wanted a thing where walk-ons can't become backing job. I think Bryson Barnes will be able to do that. Now, with that being said, I think if he can tap into his full potential, I think he has he's more multi-use. He's got a bunch of, dual threat action. Obviously, we'd understand business. But I think like if and be able to do that, I think he's probably the better option. If you want somebody that's stable, somebody that can make those throws hands down, right? I mean, we saw that in the Rose Bowl. I think which was funny, right? I think even us but at the same time, you look back on all the things that they always say, like Bryson is the number 2 guy, the depth chart, and it was like it didn't fully make sense yet, and so it was really hard. But I think once you did see it, you did see that Bryson can make those throws. They put into one of the toughest environments of all of there, throw a touchdown and give Utah a chance to win. So can he do that on a consistent basis? Right? I mean, for Utah to be able to have Cam to stay healthy, and they need him to not miss any time. But I think Utah's okay, right? I think Bryson, guy, he's okay. Jaquindon Jackson, he still needs. I know in the offseason he's worked a ton at that, making strides that Kyle had talked about, and just do what he needed to do. So I think with a full Jaquindon Jackson in the right mindset. I mean, let's be real. He suffered, I believe, to him that died in a year's time. That's really, and he told me in the spring that he just wasn't football, right? Like as much as you want to be that guy, the reality is he just wasn't in the right. I think he's now in that spot, right? That it doesn't mean that those things or that he hasn't forgot about them, but I think he's now at a level where I can play at a competitive, level and be able to do what he needs. So to see how it goes, we probably won't find out any about that more into camp because they've got to get pads on and they've got to be. I wouldn't be surprised if Jaquindon at the time. I'm still going to default that to.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you talked about when you put a guy into the Rose Bowl in that high pressure of a situation, a moment, and he performs really well. It's hard not to think he's going to be the backup. And even though we could still see some packages for Jaquindon, this coaching staff might feel that the best person to run this offense once Cam goes down is Bryson. And by no means does Bryson have Jaquindon's wheels, but he still can move a little bit. And we saw that kind of the run in the spring game as well. Got the taunting flag, but outside of that, still can do a little bit on the move. So it is going to be interesting to see what happens if Cam did go down for some reason, but Utah has a good quarterback room. We're going to talk about the future of that quarterback room in just a second, but first, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL season just getting underway as well, golf, and of course, college football. You guys know the national media is always low on this Utah team, so make sure you head over to BetOnline to see what odds and lines you guys can cash in on for some of the upcoming games and just the season in general. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Josh, we talked about this Utah team is in great hands with Cam Rising. And it feels like if he has he's been in college a long time as well. So it feels like if he has a good season, I believe this will be his 5th season. I know personally he was when he started out at Texas, I have a friend I played high school football with who was teammates with Cam. And then once Utah got Cam, he's like, oh, Cam's going to be great. So Cam has been in college for a long time. So it feels like with a good season, he will leave. We talked about Jaquindon. We talked about Bryson a little bit. There's another guy in Nate Johnson who's coming in. We all expect him to redshirt this year, but certainly the highest recruit of that group. So even though we have a lot to talk about with this season, I still think it's interesting to look ahead. Who do you think will be Utah's starting quarterback by game 1 of next season?
No, there may be a chance where he's not even on the roster, right? I mean, type setting. But I think right now, Johnson, he's expected to be, pretty. It's hard to see how that translates from his high school. I mean, he was dynamic in high school and was able there, but D1 football is a different quarterback. You're expected to be able to be this good. No, right? To me, it's a tough situation, right? Because Jaquin didn't be that starting quarterback, and I believe that if Jaquin makes the progress that he needs to and be able to make more active, I think he can be that starter. I think I don't want to make this. I think he's a really talented player. I just don't know if you get that same with Cam, right? And of course they're different pairs, those two, but I think that's what's hard. If the progress that he needs to, I think he can be that. So I'll be surprised if somebody like Nate Johnson does come in. Like I said, a transfer quarterback comes in and Utah goes. I just don't know if we've really seen enough from confident that Utah's in a great position next year. That I think there's going to be a nice battle that goes and happens that way. Little reps under Nate Johnson. He joins the team this fall in there, and Jaquin, he's got the experience and understands Ludwig's offense, but back that can make throws, right? Like, unless you every play and be able to do all these things, but people forget Lamar can still throw the ball. I don't know. I'm going to give you a cop-out answer right now. That's no. I think Nate Johnson's probably the odds on. I think he's probably got more accuracy level in Division I football. Isn't have that experience.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun battle. It'll be interesting to see who wins it. Like you said, Nate Johnson probably he's got a really good chance to win it. That's personally my pick. We're way far out from the game. When you got a quarterback that talented, I just think a year in a system learning under these guys, I think next year it'll be his job, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Bryson or Jaquin ends up nabbing it instead. Josh, before we get you out of here, we got one more for you. You are the AP voter for Utah, so you're someone who understands the landscape of college football as a whole. What kind of a season do you think Utah is going to have this year?
Yeah, I think Utah is absolutely what people expect them to do as a college. I think they can be in that mix, and I think it's if you can get a win there, I think that allows people to kind of give them a lot of national media is giving Utah credit. State, they still thought that Utah was a dynamic team. Now, if you can start the season with a win in SEC country environment, that only helps you play and do whatever you need to do. But I think they have what it takes to at least be in that conference. Utah will be in the playoffs. Probably not. I think if they can run the table in the conference and win 100%, I think they might be able to be that first Pac-12 to be able to get there. But it's tough, right? I mean, it's games, relatively unscathed. Regardless, though, I still think Utah isn't content. I think that they've got all the pieces there, barring injury. I think they've got everything that they need to be able to do it. Top 15 team. I think if you can stay a top 15 team of the season, I think that's a success. That means you're winning a lot of. And quite honestly, if you're a Utah fan, that's what you want to do. If you want them to win, if they don't get to the playoffs, it's not the end of the world. It's still a great opportunity. Conference first. That's what matters the most. At the very least, to try to do those things. Those are the things. To me, I think they still get a lot of those top teams, and I think there's no reason to.
Yeah, I think this, like you mentioned, this team is set up for success. It is just so hard. It's the reason we've really only seen Alabama be able to do it every single season. So hard to run the table. Just even losing just one game is so tough. And it's one of those things as well where even if Utah lost just one game and still won the Pac-12 championship, there's still a world where they don't get in, which is crazy. But the other conferences do it as well. It's a level of competition thing that plays into it. There's a lot that goes into this, but Utah will definitely have a chance this season. And arguably the biggest reason for that will be Cam Rising. So Josh, really appreciate you coming on today. If you guys want to hear more from Josh just launched a new podcast, as well as always turning out content at KSL.com covering the Utah beat. Make sure you guys go follow Josh on Twitter, JFURKSL on Twitter. Also, if you guys are in the market for a second listen every day, make sure you guys head over to Locked On Pac-12, where host Spencer McLaughlin takes you around the conference in under 30 minutes with other Locked On hosts. Lots of conference football season preview going on, so a little bit realignment talk as well. If you guys are curious about the state of the Pac, make sure you guys head over and check out Locked On Pac-12. Make sure you guys go follow the show at Locked On Utes on Twitter. I'm JT Wistrcill. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good one.